Hello class. In this video I'm going to continue to look at trees, and I'm going to actually look at what I'm going to call forest, making a forest. And so I'm going to say down in this zone where I don't have a lot of things, I'm just going to plant it all with trees, almost like you can see in the background over here, something that might look like that. And I'm going to do it differently than the way I've done trees in other videos, although you could place individual trees or using the brush tree and certainly put enough in there to make it more dense. This is just another technique. It's quick. It looks different. You can actually use it for anything that you want. So some interesting techniques ultimately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and make a new layer and call it forest here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I actually already did this. I went to Google and I looked up image search and looked up forest or treetops. And once you get an image, I actually found one, and then I cropped it just to get the trees in. I cropped it in Photoshop. I'll show you the image. But once you have that all good to go, you want to go to File, Place, and you want to go to wherever you saved it here, and you want to make sure, we're going to turn this into a swatch, so I want to make sure it doesn't say link there, and I want to go to Place. And I'm just going to drag this down to be fairly large because I want it to cover this whole area here. And you can see it's just what I pulled in here is just an image of treetops, right? And I want to start by making sure that the pictures of the trees are about the size of trees that I want for my drawing. And we can see I'm pretty close here, that this tree you can almost make out here is about the size of that tree. And if not, if maybe arguably I need to make mine a little smaller, I can just make it proportionally smaller from the corner to get it to be the size that I want. And then once that is made, I'm just going to open up my swatches and drag this into my swatch to make it a swatch. So now I'm going to delete that. I just hit the delete key on my keyboard to remove it. And because what we really want to do is I want to make an object the shape of the forest that I want. And to start with, since I'm going to use a couple effects here, I just need to roughly mark out where I want my forest to be. So I'm gonna say it blends across the edge in my case and comes up close to this road. And I'm even going to allow maybe it comes out to the side a little bit, maybe down in here. Maybe it pulls up, whatever it wants. It's just a rough shape. Straight lines is fine. The color doesn't matter because I'm going to do a swatch. In fact, I have this pond in here. I'm going to worry about pulling out the pond later in some other areas because that's an important step in making a forest. But I'm just going to come up here. Oops, I have my stroke filled. I'm going to select my fill as my main element here, and then select the swatch forest I just made, and there we go. I've got some trees. Now this is not the end of my forest, this is just the beginning, but we can see that's sort of using the swatch, it sort of puts all those trees in there really quickly. Not so bad there, it's pretty good. So I'm going to select this now, and I'm going to apply two filters, two roughen filters to make this feel like the edge, because the internal looks good, it looks like it's trees, but it's the edge that's hard. It's a hard lined edge, and I find that using at least two sets of roughen will work good for trees. It's not dissimilar to how I've made trees in elevation or in plan or other ways, is sort of using distort and using roughen twice is an interesting effect. So I'm going to go to the first one, and the first one I'm going to do is sort of for big moves, that the forest is not straight lines, it's sort of curves and does all these things. So the settings will be different depending on your drawing, but most likely you'll want to use smooth, and you'll want to use sort of a fairly bigger number here and a fairly smaller number in here, most likely. And we can see what that does when I do that. It sort of takes what were straight lines and makes them big and curvy, so much more organic shape as a whole. But still, the edge, like I see this here, I see a tree, but obviously I'm cutting through the tree. So that's what I'm going to use roughen for a second time. So I'm going to go to Effects, I'm going to go Transform, and I'm going to go roughen. And if you get this message that says you're going to apply the same effect, yes, I want to apply a new effect. I want to roughen a second time here. So in this case, again, the settings will depend on your particulars and your drawing and your scale and things, but most likely, well, you're definitely going to need smooth. In this case, I'm actually going to switch this to absolute on this tab, which is not something I typically do. And I'm going to make this a small number. And we can do a preview here. And we can see when I do that, now I get little curves at each end. So like this little curve here is meant to sort of be like the edge of that tree, and so on and so forth. And I am going to change this up a little bit further. That's probably a little too high, but I'm getting close. We can see as I change this, the amount of change happens there. So maybe somewhere around there is pretty good for the size of tree. And you can, oops, and actually this I want to make, yeah, that's good, I guess. I could probably play around with this a little while, but for the video point, I can go okay and say that's good enough. So now we can see, like, I have an organic overall shape, and I have, or this sort of edge is no longer a straight edge. There's sort of trees coming in and out. I could probably work on it a little bit. It's never going to be perfect through this method. The point of this was really that I can generate this really quickly, right? I mean, if I wasn't, I'm only up to 5 minutes here, but if I wasn't talking, I would have it done in 60 seconds, certainly under 2 minutes. Now, there's still some things I can do to this too, which is nice. A nice feature about this method that I can do to make this easy is I can cut holes into it using compound path. And so, if, for example, I were to start over here and I'm just going to draw a shape, a diamond-ish shape, if I turn it purple, just so you can see, or blue. It doesn't matter what the shape is or what the color is. Once I run compound path on it, so I'm going to select the original forest below and this blue shape, and I'm going to go to Objects, Compound Path, Make. We can see what it does is it's applying the two rough-ins automatically to it. So I get a nice little hole here that looks organic and like a forest feels, and you can easily go to your select tool, the white arrow, and select any of these individual points and change them around to sort of make them what you think that hole should be. And so I'm going to do the same thing, and this for this particular drawing I might come in here and do the same thing around, and where this pond is. I can't see it exactly, but I can always edit it later. So I'll make a shape. You don't have to change the color, and then I'll make the compound path. From that, we can see now I've cut the hole for what this lake will be, and in this case I do have to edit where it is. Don't be afraid when making a forest to have things like, treetops often do come over the edge of a pond, right? So I can sometimes they might pull back, sometimes it might come over the edge of the pond. That's perfectly fine. Same thing at the edges, like maybe some trees do really start to encroach on the edge of the parking lot or edge of coming out of the drawing, wherever the case might be. You can keep playing with these points, and because it has the rough-in filter on it, it sort of adjusts itself into an organic feel pretty quickly. And so if you're trying to just put it on, certainly if it's not a highlight of a drawing, it can work really easy and really quickly to get that done. And the other thing I have done, I'm not going to show in this video, but you can put two and two together. I have done this method as a base, and then I've applied filters on top of it that might make it look more like a drawing, or maybe I'll add a hue over top of it with the blending mode to pull out the greens. So for one of my criticisms of this forest right now might be that the hue, the green, are a little too saturated and a little too green compared to some of the other greens in my drawing. So I could make it more vibrant by adding a color on top of this and blending it in with that forest, or adding filters or effects to bring it into the consistency with the rest of the drawing. That all you can look at lots of videos, experiment with as you want, but really I wanted to show you how to get an organic edge with using the double rough and to quickly be able to generate a forest type feel there. Alright, so have fun with this, and I'll see you in the next video.